containers, because that's what you want. You want to put your stuff and little things inside of the system. And you want to do it because your computer is really like a supercomputer from 2000s, right? So on it you can have lots of stuff. So that's the things for, some people use Curelet originally in 1990s to make a fast honeycomb. So the idea of putting something in the virtual environment that is like secure started over there. But the original thing for Curelet was just to have things organized, to keep complicated systems separate. So, yeah. So Docker. Docker just happens to be done completely on LXC. And it's a particular vision of a container. And we'll move from our console working into something which I'll say, hey, this looks like Docker file. So basically, it's tons of automation, and the idea is there is industrially, Docker wants you to have systems that are sort of same, and there's like changes sliced up. But that's industrial part. And if you don't need industrial, doesn't mean that you cannot use Linux containers. So look at this. This is JAWS on FreeBSD. I just took it with one of my systems like this. Some of these are applications, some of these databases, but you know, this is Linux containers, which is on the office machines which I used. Looks very similar. And in reality, the commands that you're going to need are very simple. So before we go in, I'm not a very good administrator. So these are the tricks that I use on the console. So if you want to write that down later on, it sort of helps you to move arrows up and down when you're sort of half finding something. Yeah. Now, can we move this console? Okay. So LXC is trivial, and this is what the list of things that we'll go through. What's nice to note is that there's only 3 sets of things. Is to look what containers you've got, make one, delete one, then start, stop, and restart the container, and execute some command in it. And there's another set, 2 last sub-commands, it's file, to put something into the container and to get out. I haven't used anything else so far. So with that, do you see that?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by arrows up and down. That's the trick which I saw works in FreeBSD. It's set by default. So I'm on letter L and I scroll like sudo space and what were the last things that I typed in there. Well, let's start with LXC LS. Oops. So these are the containers which we got, and you see I was trying yesterday to do some of the stuff. Let's do the delete one of them, delete of KWLUG. It's nice, you can easily delete and recreate the systems and this gives you freedom to make mistakes. So for example, you want to set up some that's all right. So that's what's left. Like I just deleted a few systems and that's what left. So now let's do the sudo LXC and launch. For some reason, a command to create the container is called launch, because it creates it and then it does it. And there are a few images which you can use. Images, there's Fedora, Debian, there's CentOS, and I'll do the Ubuntu, of course. That's what I'm using. All of them are already on the machine. Now, this thing is not pulling anything from the web. It's all sort of, who's there? It's all cached, so it's nice. You can play easily. So now with this, what we said, the next program you want to know is execute. Execute in this. Oh, okay, sorry. Let's try to see that this thing appeared at the top, KWLUG. That's what we created. Now, in that thing we can execute KWLUG and do a little spacing. Let's see, do a little bit bigger. Yeah, you see, so it works, it executes inside of the container, anything. So, for example, if you don't want to type all of these things in front of the, all the time, you can do, for example, bash, and you get yourself into root console onto that system, if you wish. So, but technically, from here, you can do anything. You can do apt install, you can do, it will attach the internet, you can do the apt upgrade and stuff like that. Oh, is it possible to connect to the internet? Didn't have time to
Wireless.
yeah.
Do KWIC, that's what you declare.
It's update. And that thing is doing like the regular Ubuntu system. Yes?
Is there any special process for how what types of files we need to set up a container? Do we need an ISO of an image?
So those images which you or when we did the this launch, so LXD comes with knowledge that there's a server from Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is serving those things like 18 puts up, and then there's another server which called just images, and there's a website for it. And on it there's Debian, there's Fedora, and all of those images, they are simple. There's nothing on it. When you set up your system, you can make it, turn it into your own image, and then you can use it in production or further on. That's all in there. It's a little bit extra stuff on top of the subcommands which I showed over there, and I haven't done it myself, but the manual says it's true. So yeah, basically there's no need to pre-set up anything in order to start playing it. Just like anything. How much per time? 20 minutes. Let me see. So do you guys have questions so far?
I have one question.
Yes.
I'm just curious, could you hop into one of those containers and type es-ef?
Let's see. Let's do.
I can do this myself, but I'm lazy.
Yes. Type what?
PS space dash ef. So in other words, showing all the processes. No space between the dash ef.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I forgot.
Okay, so it's actually booting. It's booting into Ubuntu rather than just Docker. Just gives you kind of quote an execution environment. This is actually a full server.
Yes, that's a complete thing actually.
So it's running its own copy of system D, its own init, its own services.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So up, oops. We can do upgrade. You see, and there's like tons of stuff that it needs to upgrade. And I wrote a script, and maybe I'll just, well, do this thing. So, I'm just trying to make a font a little bigger on this thing.
I think it's okay.
Okay, so basically, that's a recording of what I did in order to set up a reverse proxy which has a servbot on it. Servbot is a thing which updates your Let's Encrypt certificates. So really, this thing echo is nothing. The first step is LXC launch create Ubuntu container. That's the first thing. Second thing, there's SSH in the container. I don't want that, I just disable it. And then I restart the container. Or in the middle in here, right now this thing works for my server setup. I insert in the net plan a file with how my networking looks like. The net plan on Ubuntu is sort of very convenient thing, actually. Some people didn't like it when it came initially, but the setup for the networking is very nice. So I create that container. The second line I tell it, here's your networking, and then I restart the container, and the Ubuntu has a user Ubuntu which I don't need, so I delete it. Then I do update, upgrade, just in case there's something funky in it, and then I do install hub proxy and servbot and nginx. So my reverse server is hub proxy, and the servbot is a thing. It does the challenges over the network with Let's Encrypt server, and it has to prove where it exists. But it there's a when servbot runs with the web root option, it puts all of its challenges into some folder which should be served on the internet. And so my nginx here is that thing which is turned on to serve on the internet for the servbot when it's needed. Then these things are just hooks for the servbot, so it has nothing to do with the container. And we create some directory in the container for those hooks, and then we do some settings in the container. But it's again, it has to do everything with just applications which I want to set up and nothing else. By itself, the LXC, there's like 3 lines for LXC here. Everything else is line LXC execute this in the container. And I put dashes. You don't have to put the dashes, but they sort of separate visually that's on the right is input which is used what in the container itself. So let's maybe even go and just go. So basically, that's that script. And if you think about it, that script is just what I did. I set up the container, I did one thing, didn't work, I did another thing. I just recorded things that worked for me. And now this script is something which is He didn't like something. He didn't like the fact that I didn't use sudo. So I put all those things in one script, and that script, if you squint, is like a Docker script. Just Docker and some YAML thing. Okay? And here is like, okay, this is what exactly happens with me. And there's two choices for me. I can either use this script where I need it, or I can have my running machine make an image out of it, save it, and reuse it somewhere else. So those are the options. So with that, I really don't know what else to say on entry level. Yes.
So I have a few questions.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I'm a Docker person, so I'm not going to say Team Docker or whatnot, but I bring everything from my context in Docker. So two places I'm curious about is capabilities mechanism. Does LXC, how does LXC address capabilities like set user system time, configure network devices, things like that?
I can tell you about the configuration, because you saw on that slide it was just hashed out. So for the configuration, you configure your own network. There's LXD, there's so that script sort of worked. You know what I showed you just worked nicely. LXD init. There's this script LXD init. So initially you start it, and then it says, do you want to do LXD clustering? I don't know yet what's that, but there's a slide later on maybe related to this. Default, no. Do you want to configure storage pool? Usually like default, yes, there's a storage pool, but let's say no for now. Do you want to connect to MAS server? So the last slide was if you have tons of servers and you want to run something like Ocean, DigitalOcean, here you have it, MAS plus LXD. I installed MAS and opened the web interface. It's a very nice thing. It seems like very workable. Well, let's try to do no. And here's the question about the network. So
what does MAS stand for?
Metal as a service, and that's Ubuntu which is doing it. You attach tons of servers onto IPMI ports. IPMI ports go onto a separate network from which it does all of that, and you can put, there can be LXD or virtual machine on that, but LXD sounds very nice. So here, setup, which is right now on this laptop, I created a special network bridge for the settings. So there's a bridge on which all of those IPs were created, and you saw I created a new container and it got that little bridge. So if I have a server inside of this little network, I will have to port forward it onto the outside. On my actual setup, in the office, there's a machine in the office which has like a few containers. There's no bridge on it. All of those things sit already on, so we'll say no, for example. And then it says, do you want to configure existing interface? And there I put it on my interface, and there containers are on the interface. Now this is a very nice lead-up question, because unlike FreeBSD, with the containers, when you have all of them, let's see, so when you have all of them, and you can see there's IP addresses on them, you can do proper filter. So you can really secure these things out. For example, If I have a Jira here and database for Jira, these only can talk one way between each other, and that's it. Nobody can talk with them. If you're inside of a FreeBSD and you have jails on your local machines, good luck to do the filtering. Because when it's all on the local machines, there's this loop-back device, and I tried and tried and tried to get around it, and no, you really cannot do it. So if you want something like jails, and so that you can filter things on the network between them, go with LXC. Unless somebody shows me what you can do on the FreeBSD with the jails. Yeah, so that's the network.
Is it closer to the hardware than a virtual machine through like VirtualBox? Like, is it?
It is.
Okay.
It is. That's why it is running faster. Okay, he knows better.
I have a really simple answer. Normally you have a machine, you load a kernel, you run some software. If you're running virtualization, you have a machine, you load a special kind of kernel, which they don't call a kernel because whatever, is called a hypervisor. And that hypervisor runs several other kernels, which then run an operating system, which are then operating systems. With containerizations, you've got a machine, and you're running a kernel, and that kernel creates, I use the term execution environments. So they're containers, but the idea is essentially the operating system lies. So this process says, hey, who's here? You. How many processes are there? Yours. What users are on this machine? You. And that's what containers are. So the kernel is keeping double books. It's, okay, this process's view of the world is this, and this process's view of this, and this. And so if you're in each of these processes, you get different answers to the same question. You jump out to the host, you see this mashup of like, where the hell are all these processes from? Oh, I see, this one's running in that container, and this one's running in that container, and there's my copy of it running in my actual real kernel. Does it make sense?
It does. I'm simply wondering if LXD is loading, I mean, is it loading different kernels for each of the images?
No.
They share.
You sure? So you wouldn't be able to run FreeBSD with LXD?
No.
You wouldn't be able to run a Unix?
It
Well, you
runs
could run
Linux.
an emulator in there.
Yeah, it runs Linux. It's the same way on a FreeBSD. You cannot run Linux in a jail, but you can run a different version of FreeBSD. But here you can run CentOS on your Ubuntu. This is a PS on the host machine. I don't know if it makes any sense to you, but there's a question mark.
I do a quick rec on system B that might show. So
Okay.
PS, dash EF rec system B, and you'll probably see one in each container plus yours.
Okay,
outside.
say it again.
So PS space dash EF
Yeah.
type to grep
Graph
system B,
system.
and you should see all the system D processes. Oh, there's a lot of them. Actually, there should be some duplicates here. Wait,
Yeah,
Well,
there
they
could
do
be
they have a common
some
structure?
Yeah, John
key
D,
mechanisms that
and
uses
then
their
the
C
John
groups.
D, and
I see
yes.
groups,
namespaces.
right, and there's a third one. I thought there were three from the talk. But that's all that this stuff
It's
really
been a
is,
few
right?
years. Yeah,
All
they
it
were
is
based
is-
on the same exact foundation.
Yeah. So, any other questions?
If you shut down your container, if you shut down your system, what happens to the container?
They all should orderly shut down on my shutdown machine when I do the shutdown. When the machine starts, I think everything should start up orderly, unless maybe there's something in the settings, which I assume is possible to do. Yeah, that's my answer. And we can just say stop proxy. And then it shows that it stopped. So looking
Okay,
so
so it exists, but it's just stopped.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
Can you do things like freezing state, or is this really like starting and shutting down?
For me, right now, I'm just talking that you can use it, but that's advanced topic, so you can read this. Yes.
So when you actually create the container, I noticed you said it was CentOS and Debian.
Yeah.
Are there repositories that'll have containers that'll have something like, let's say, HA proxy already configured that you could start up?
Maybe there are something like that, but the guys at LXD, they're saying, no, we're providing just clean stuff. We're not like Docker, the company.
Okay.
So, and if you notice, like with the Ubuntu, I start this container, I turn off the SHD, I remove the user Ubuntu, like, and when you bring out somebody else's container, are you sure what's in it? So sometimes, like, for me, the idea of making container completely from scratch is actually feels better. Maybe I'm just a nut. So.
Because I know have you ever heard of Proxmox?
Proxmox.
So it's a hypervisor. I know that
Okay.
they also have LXC container capability, like through the UI and everything. And they have bundled software, so you can download like all kinds of things and just spin them up as containers. But I haven't really delved into it too much.
Now, maybe analogous to that, LXD has an option to run, it's called some setting, in which it will run the Docker image. So that's number one, like this LXD, because it's inside it's LXC anyway, it's container. Number two, the answer to the snapshotting question, because they have mass plus LXC, probably there is an option to sort of freeze the state, move it to another machine, and then continue on. Probably, but and in their publications, Ubuntu, like they tell lots of nice stuff. I'll put it this way. So, so we come through that. That Docker is a particular way of what container should be, but it's not exactly what all people must have a thing. So for example, for me, container, something I start, I do some stuff in it, I don't like it, I remove it. I like it, I just continue using. I don't need a second copy of it. In other shops, for example, you want a repeatable snapshots. And yeah, basically changes in Docker replaces the changes in your server versions. Let's put it this way. So some shops now have a question: do I use Docker to manage switches from one version to another, or do I use other level of switching the software?
I think the biggest difference is that Docker is really concerned about isolating processes in the singular generally.
Yes.
And LXC looks really more associated with isolating systems.
Yes, but we've had a guy who just did Docker for GitLab, and GitLab has tons of processes. It has like 3 system users, you know, so.
I can hammer nails with a screwdriver. It's made to do that.
So, as I said, the rest of the questions for LXC, which I was talking about setting a proxy, it's actually everything is like networking, it's all outside of LXC. LXC itself is just a very simple, nice tool, and that's the script which I was showing you, and that's like if you have tons of servers, do mass with LXC. Did you like it? Yeah. Andrew.
So I may be asking you something you have no idea, and that's entirely fair. So I've been doing a little bit of reading on OpenShift, such as like Red Hat's container management
Uh-huh.
thing. This kind of sounds similar to it, but I don't know. Have you looked at OpenShift at all? Or is
Actually, I never did. I knew that there's containers like LXC, and I didn't want to go all the way the Docker way.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, let's try it. So basically, so this is a machine, my working machine for my applications, and so it uses the jails, and like it's 3 years old already, like in that setup. This is what I was doing like 2 months ago. So it was like, let's try, let's see. Oh, okay, let's. So GitLab in there is actually what was on that same machine as it was server with the desktop on. So I moved the files and I moved the users. I cloned the users, so I know about the number of users that GitLab creates. So I did that exercise, but the rest of it came out very easily. Make another container, put something in it. Didn't work, kill the container, make another one, repeat, repeat, repeat. Yep.
Are the user ID maps in LXC, are they the same ones as the ones outside, or are they is it using the user namespacing technology to create multiple routes?
Yes, that's a very good question. So unlike the FreeBSD, where you can go directly into the folder where your jail has files, and sometimes from the host you look at those files and you can see, is it the same ID or is it different ID? Like there's a funky thing which you can play with. Here we have a special function file. So in order to touch those things inside, you need this file option. And from, like, I have no idea how to look inside of it, so all of those IDs, when they come to the file system, they're separate from the host. Now, whether that ID is separate in terms of ID as a process in the kernel, I assume they should be separate, and there's LXC is a collection of technologies. One of them is called C group. I don't know what it is, but it sounds like separations of the.
Well, its namespaces would be that.
Yes.
C group is about resource monitoring and controlling, whereas namespaces are about kind of these double books saying different answers to the same question.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of the file system, you never have that clash which you may have when you're inside of the FreeBSD jails, because it's all separate. Now this option with the file is also good because maybe you can put your container with the storage on some different storage media or something else totally different from what your host is. So that's also nice. And then that was a lead up to something else. Well, never mind.
Can you put a timer on your containers? Instead of just saying start, stop, restart, can you actually say run for 24 hours and self-destruct?
Yes, that's a good question. So what I was thinking about that for the certbot. So certbot sometimes has to start and stop. So if you want to stop and restart the container, this timer has to be on the host. And yes, just put a cron job that starts something, and your script will have something like LXC start that container, and that's it. So yes, but it has to be on the host, because that thing cannot restart itself, right? Yeah, and if you need, like for the certbot, the idea was, one of the options was like 10 one container and then another. So if you want that orchestration of the containers, has to be on the host. It cannot be in one of the containers, because it's sort of like a jail, and the jailmates cannot do anything inside of the jail. we're good for time.
Can we see your config file for your arrow keys going through your history again? At the beginning of your presentation, you had a little config file.
The bindings.
The bindings.
The up arrow bindings.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
Yes.
When you are in a FreeBSD, maybe it's shell, maybe it's SH which does that. That thing, like, you know, you put an error, and with the tab, you sort of, you have an error in regular bash, right? And you go in the history. But when you stay in the middle, like, this is a better way. Yeah. Well, you saw, I really don't remember many of those commands. I was just using the error ups and downs. I'm like, that looks. I remember. Just put it in a bash RC, so that's what I have in my own bash RC. And I put it also in host machines where I do administration. One machine. Yep.
So, when you make a container,
Yep.
you can install programs and stuff.
Yes.
I got confused a little bit because it sounds like they're not just stored in the file system on the host someplace.
They are stored in.
Like, are they in some binary format? What?
So that's the place. Let me go. So by default, there's a place, at least in Ubuntu, it's var lib LXD, and then containers. Why it's there? It's their choice. But when we go here, there's a rootfs over there. We can try to see what's inside of the rootfs. Actually, it's a rootfs. Let's see how it looks. We want to do a listing of it. Now we want to do list and show. No, the thing is that if I do just ls on my, it shows that root is owner, and here it shows that here's some ID number which it used in order to put all of the files inside of the same root system, but you see the IDs are different. When you are in a FreeBSD jails, root file on your root and root inside of the jail, they will all have same ID for the root at least. And here's a separation. And yes, and probably it's possible to make it not like spread out like in a file system, but also have just one binary block.
In terms of versus having something like a VM, you don't really need to allocate this space or anything like that. It just works out. You already have similar like Curelet, where you just have a folder where it's
Yes.
like relative.
Yeah. Yeah. So with this setting for the container storage, you don't need that allocation. More so, maybe LXC can work with the with that fine file system, which is ZFS. Yes, ZFS. Yes, that's also options.
Go back to that bind again.
To which?
The bind.
Yes.
Getting the last bit.
Yep.
Thank you.
I really don't know what it means. I copied it.
So what do those map to? The arrow keys?
Yes, arrow keys, up and down, but up and down is two of them, so why there's the other two, I don't know.
You can
Maybe
remove
right,
two.
left, shift, with the shift, yes. Okay.
Maybe it catches the numpad keys.
All right. Since we have no further questions, we leave floor for the next speaker.
Thank you.
All right, so after our exciting start,